Hello everybody and welcome back yet again to my channel and kitchen. In today's recipe, I'm going to show you how to whip up a full-bodied, savory and zesty minestrone soup that utilizes what would be looked at as ugly or flawed produce by a lot of folks. I partnered up with Kroger in this video to help highlight their Zero Hunger, Zero Waste initiative by creating just one example of a simple solution to a very complex problem. Do not look at flawed produce as a flaw, but more as an opportunity to cook in different and unique ways with produce that doesn't always represent itself the way we are accustomed to nowadays. Not only does Kroger reward this type of thinking with reduced cost on these items, but is consciously reducing and eliminating its use of plastic bags by 2025 with this whole mindset of sustainability and smart shopping. Now, I'm all about this type of forward thinking in the food world, and the minestrone I'm about to show you that we'll be using all of this flawed produce, if you will, can be a small piece to helping the cause. All right, without further ado, let's dive into the recipe. All right, guys, today is soup minestrone, as you guys just saw. This is gonna be a really fun recipe. I love soups in general. I love making soups, especially when it gets towards the end of summer and fall starting. It's a very warming thing to do, especially with being able to use some unique produce that might be looked at as something that would go in the garbage or the trash can, which I absolutely hate the idea of. So really excited to be a part of this Zero Hunger, Zero Waste campaign with Kroger. One of the really great things about this recipe is that it's refreshing, it's loaded with flavor, and I love starting this out with just a really deep roast of the onions and a lot of the good produce that's going into it. So let's get started. All right, so normally you use like garlic and onion as the base, the first thing that goes into the pan with a soup like this, but I'm using these shallots, and they're basically a cross between an onion and garlic, which will be perfect for this recipe. I just kind of cut off some of those bits, and then it's going to be a really rough chop. Get the heat on, low to medium. Add in some cooking oil, a little bit of canola. And then you're gonna add in your shallots. And you're gonna get a nice, not a caramelization, but maybe just like almost like a char. You want these to have a pretty decent color on them. Maybe a minute longer, so you get a little bit more color. You want to have a pretty, deep onion savory flavor with this. And I like to cook minestrone in stages. You're more than welcome to throw everything kind of in the same pot, cook it, boil it, however you got to do it. But I like to kind of layer the different cooking times of each ingredient so that they really maximize their flavor. So the zucchinis will go in a little bit later. And then I'm going to start off the flavoring with the carrots, tomatoes, and this rutabaga because they take a little bit longer to go along with the cannellini beans. And then we'll start developing the flavors from there with some herbs and spices. All right, this looks good. I'm going to add tomatoes. And then about a teaspoon of tomato paste, or I should say a tablespoon. And I'm gonna cook this down. I'm gonna cook this down into like a sticky kind of a tomato jam. And then add my carrots and the rutabaga. I know rutabagas are kind of a weird produce item for most folks, maybe not so much for others, but it is a beautiful, beautiful thing to work with. It's almost like a cross between kind of like a starchy potato and a turnip, but not as spicy as some Tokyo turnips or white turnip varieties can be. It's a pretty sturdy root vegetable, holds up really well in soups, and has a really soft flavor to it that I love. Okay, so we're just gonna kind of dice this up. And you want everything to be relatively the same size, you know, but also keep it kind of chunky. All right, got my rutabaga and the carrots chopped up. That's gonna go straight into this tomatoey goodness. Give that a quick stir. All right, now I'm gonna put in the cannellini beans that have been soaking. Cannellini beans in, and then I'm going to add some chicken stock, or you can use vegetable stock, a little bit of rosemary, and then a bay leaf. Just one bay leaf. These are quite strong. And then I'm going to let this cook on a slow simmer for, I'd say, about 45 minutes, or until those beans are really tender and the carrots and the rutabaga are tender as well. Once that's done, I'm gonna chop this good stuff up, all those beautiful squashes, add that to the pot as well, and cook that until it's just slightly tender. It has a little bit of an al dente crunch to it still, because I like my zucchini, you know, still fresh if I can. So while this is cooking, I got the base to the minestrone going. I'm just gonna simply prep my veggies. And one of the cool things I'm gonna do with this recipe is I'm gonna dry roast these on my, my flat top grill, or my plancha. And that's going to give a nice charred flavor to each one of these squash plus these chilies. And it's gonna just enhance the overall earthiness inside the minestrone, because the minestrone, it has that natural tomato zestiness that is very reminiscent of a fresh vegetable soup. But it also has a lot of deep flavor because you have the cannellini beans, lots of different flavors going into one pot. So it's a very you know, rich soup in a sense, almost kind of like a ratatouille, if you can think of it like that. So one thing I'm gonna do with these squash is I'm gonna dry roast them really, really hard so they get charred. But they're not going to cook all that much. They're just gonna slightly cook, almost like a blanch, if you were to blanch them in water, pull them out, stick them in an ice bath. So really fast cooking, high temperature, and then I'm gonna slice them up and finish the soup off with the charred vegetables. So we're about, I'd say, 35 minutes into the cooking process. The beans are really starting to become nice and tender. The rutabaga looks good. If you want, this is definitely the time to be adding pasta. Now, most folks do add pasta to their minestrone, and which I'm going to do the same thing. But it's definitely optional. You can always substitute, you know, the starch that these provide with a potato or something more of your liking. So I'm going to add in my pasta, some fusilli pasta. That's going to bring a little bit of body to the soup because of the starch in that pasta. And then this is going to cook, I don't know, another 10-15 minutes. But while that's going, I'm going to roast my vegetables on a nice hot flat top. Now with these, like I said, you just want to charm. You're not going to cook them on the other side. They're just going to be this one side, really intense heat for about 10 minutes, maybe even 7 minutes. But you want a really dark color, you know, almost more than that, where it's charred. right, just a few more minutes. And then these are just going to be sliced up nice and evenly, put into the soup, give it a quick stir, salt test, and it's ready to plate. Beautifully charred. I'm just going to use some of the better pieces because this is quite a bit of squash. Never a bad thing to have roasted squash on hand. So I'm going to save some of this, add some of the chilies to the soup as well. That's maybe one more, that's good. And with these, I'm just going to just slice them up. Be careful with your hands. Make them look pretty too. So sweet. I love when they're charred like that. All right. I'm actually gonna keep the chilies as a garnish for myself, so it's not too spicy for the kids. This is gonna go straight into the soup. Oop. Keep dropping it. It's getting nice and full. I like that. Alrighty. Give this a gentle stir because this is definitely one very full pot of soup. My wife is going to be very happy about this. She loves soups, especially minestrone. It just has loads of yummy flavors. There's pasta, beans soak up all that savory flavor, which I'm very excited about. And this is perfect for when fall comes. I'm going to do a quick salting of it. I always like to salt my soups towards the end, even though it's kind of okay to layer them as you go. You got to be careful because you're reducing liquid and the salt doesn't evaporate like the water does, so it kind of just condenses and gets saltier as it goes. So I've always been taught to try to salt your soups and sauces right at the end. So now it's time to plate. All right, minestrone soup is done. This was a really great recipe. I love recipes like this that utilize or that are capable of utilizing lots of waste, if you want to look at it like that. You know, towards the end of the summer, beginning of fall, that's where a lot of, you know, the peak season of growing starts to fall off. So you tend to have some, you know, odd-shaped produce towards the end of the season, don't really know what to do with it. And that's why I thought this is a great idea that Kroger had to use produce like that they're getting in their stores. Instead of it being thrown away, it's being utilized in a really fantastic way. And this recipe definitely is a good scapegoat to be able to use for those types of ingredients that you don't really know what to do with because they might not look typical from what you might be used to. I'm gonna give this a taste, see how it turned out, and run through the flavors. Okay. It's kind of amazing how much the pasta helps thicken the body of the soup. Ooh, very, very good. The bay leaf and the rosemary are just vital to soups in general, and especially to a soup like this that it has really kind of hearty vegetables in it. It just brings a lot of aromatics into the soup. If you guys didn't know what to do with a rutabaga, now you guys do, because it really absorbs a lot of flavors, very similar to a potato. Keeps its shape even though it's been cooking for about an hour and a half. Beautiful vegetable, love that. And it's definitely one of the uglier ones in the produce section. Ooh, I think the only thing that this is missing is maybe like a big, beautiful toasty baguette to dip and soak up all those beautiful juices. But all in all, this turned out fantastic. I definitely want to thank Kroger again for partnering with me on this video. Great concept, zero hunger, zero waste. Utilizing what would be ugly produce in such a beautiful dish, to me, is a no-brainer, especially if you think about you do some reduced spending and finding those items throughout the store. Always a good idea to shop in a smart way and to shop in a very sustainable way. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below for future video requests, things you want to see. If you guys want to see more of these types of videos, drop a comment below. Give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next time with another recipe. Later, folks.